So this is the 11th annual Denver Startup Week. So thank you to our title sponsors, Amazon, Capital One Cafe, Dell for Startups, and the Downtown Denver Partnership. This session is part of the Spotlight track, and sponsored by Southwest and Chase, and one of the 8 programming tracks aimed at supporting the entire entrepreneurial team. So by attending this session, you're agreeing to follow our code of conduct as well as being photographed or recorded on video. So let's not be shy. Be sure to share your experience at this session online using hashtag DEN Startup Week, hashtag Prospanica Denver. Tag us on social media. So we have, Prospanica has Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So please share your pictures, any feedback that you would like. So for today, we're going to have, so this is put on by Prospanica Denver. We have a local chapter here. It's a national organization, and it's geared toward Hispanic professionals. Previously, we were known as the National Hispanic Society of MBAs, and we recently changed our name to Prospanica to be a little bit more encompassing. So what does Prospanica do? Prospanica's vision is to be the catalyst for Hispanic professional achievement, empower and enable Hispanic professionals to achieve their full educational, economic, and social potential. Personally, I joined this organization because I wanted to surround myself with like-minded people. Being in corporate America can sometimes be difficult, and so having other people that you can talk, share ideas, or even just that networking came to be huge. And so that's my personal reason why I've joined, and a lot of the people in the organization have become really close friends of mine. So the next one, let's see. So I'm going to introduce Dalila. So Dalila is a close friend of mine. She's amazing. She has 15 years of progressive anti-money laundering, financial crimes, and fraud compliance. So if you want to be shady, launder money, terrorist, that's what she does. She puts all of that together in vigilance. She's for the company that she works for. But the main thing is Dalila has started from the bottom and worked her way up. You know, she doesn't like to brag about herself, but she's moved her way up from a banker, teller, all the way up to where she's at right now. So she's done an amazing job. And so I'm going to hand it over to Dalila. She's on the board of Prospanica, and she's going to lead the panel today.
Thank you. I do the anti-money laundering, anti-fraud for my company, not the opposite. But So we have a great panel for you today. We have 4 panelists today that, again, we are going from entrepreneurship to how to climb the corporate ladder, and we wanted to make sure that we covered everybody. And so from now, these 4 panelists are going to give us their history, how they got there, you know, what gets you through the day, and that type of information. So to start, we're going to start with Nancy. Nancy Escojuela, she is a customer fulfillment manager at Balcorp, but she's also the owner of Yoga 6. Nancy hails from Valencia, Venezuela. She's a chemical engineer with a master's in business administration from Georgia State University. She started her career in Venezuela working with I'm not going to be able to say that, petrochemical company, and she as the chief quality assurance. In addition, she has performed several supply chain process improvements and global projects through roles in various industries. She has defined herself as an empathetic leader and collaborator who supports her team members. Nancy is a lifetime member of Prospanica, and she currently serves as a leader for the Ball Hispanic Resource Group. She's also a certified 500H yoga instructor, and she owns her own, again, Yoga Studio 6. Next we have Stephanie Vasquez. She's a talent acquisition manager at Breakthrough Beverage. Ms. Vasquez has dedicated to attracting, engaging, and hiring the best talent from the industry. She leads a team of responsible, and she's an overall talent acquisition experience is from branding, marketing, executive search, sourcing, to professional recruitment. She has over 18 years' experience in a full cycle recruitment across various industries, including aviation, pharmaceutical, industrial manufacturing, and beverage industry. Her passion is people, and she's always excited to find new and emerging talent in the pool of diversity that is out there. She's a creative collaborator, and her contributions to the success of her company. Next, we have Alfredo Rodriguez Diaz Marta. He's the Vice President at Dish Network. He leads the Latino Center for Excellence and oversees efforts to maximize segments opportunities across the enterprise. The three main brands, which are Dish, Sling, and Boost Wireless. During his tenure at Dish, he has led the strategy and managed the teams and turned Dish Latino into a leading Spanish tier pay TV provider, and subsequent oversees the brand of acquisitions, retention, and efforts at Sling. Alfredo holds various senior marketing and innovation roles with Molson Coors in Denver, Mexico, and Puerto Rico, and he worked at Philip Morris International and Kraft Foods, and where he held various country manager roles in Colombia, Ecuador, Paraguay, and the United States. Alfredo has been recognized by the Hispanic Leadership Award by Broadcasting and Cable Association, and he has a two-term appointee to the Federal Communication Commission. He works in an advisory committee of diversity and digital empowerment, and is a former YPO member. Alfredo also graduated from Washington University in St. Louis School of Business. He has a dual citizenship in the United States and Spain, and currently lives in Denver with his wife and his two children. And then, last but not least, we have Joelle Martinez. Joelle Martinez is the president and CEO of the Latino Leadership Institute. Ms. Martinez is a nationally recognized nonprofit executive, inspirational speaker, organizational strategies. She also serves as the president and CEO for the Latino Leadership Institute since 2015. She has spent over 5 years building winning business development, public affairs, and media strategies for Fortune 500 companies. In 2017, Joelle was named as one of the most 25 influential women in Colorado by the Colorado Chambers of Commerce for Women. So we have a great panel for you today. So we're going to go ahead and start with some questions about their experience and how they got to where they are today. Did we get the other microphone? Oh, there it is. Sorry. Here you go. And some of the questions that we keep asking ourselves is, did you ever envision yourself getting to where you are today, right? The position that you hold today, did you ever dream that you could make it that far? And this question goes to Nancy. Oh, is it on?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I'm so honored to be with this super talented panel. Thank you, Prospanica, for the invitation. And my story is very interesting because I didn't envision myself living in the US. I didn't see myself owning a business. That wasn't what I wanted to do when I grew up. But in a way, life circumstances brought me to this place, and I'm eternally grateful for the opportunities that I have had, including owning my own business. I was born and raised in Venezuela, as the bio said, and yes, I dream with having a college career and probably making it to a managerial level because that's what I saw my parents do. But I never saw myself either owning a business or immigrating to a different country. And I am so, so excited to have the opportunity to live here and live in a land where there's so much opportunity for you to do. So I will probably say that if you dream it, you can achieve it, and you are in the right place and in the right moment to tap into that. So take advantage of any opportunity that is presented to you and take it to the next level.
¿Me repites la pregunta?
Por supuesto. Did you ever envision yourself in the position you hold today or holding the career you hold today?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me as well. It's a great panel, and Prospanica does a lot of great things. So, did I ever think that I was going to achieve what I achieved, essentially? Similar to you, yes, because if you set a goal for yourself and a dream, there's no reason why you can't reach it. It does take a lot. There's a lot of hard work. It's what I like to call nose to the grindstone. And I believe that if you work hard and you have clear goals, that really you can achieve anything that you set your mind to. It's almost that simple. I know that this is a Hispanic panel and everything else, but I personally have never thought of myself as having as being hampered by that. On the contrary, I think it's a very a good tool to have and know about two cultures and two languages and have the understanding. As many of you know, the U.S. has 60 million self-identified Hispanics, and that's twice the size of Canada. And to be able to relate and speak and just with that is, I think, something that has certainly helped me in my career and in my goals. So.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have to have a vision, you have to know where you're going to. Stephanie, did you ever see a great challenge in your vision that you could not overcome or that you needed to overcome? And are you facing those challenges still?
Absolutely. I think for me, some of my challenges or my challenge was learning to be honest with where I come from and my background. I think starting off at Breakthrough, I was asked immediately what school I graduated from. That was supposed to give me some type of validation in the corporate world of education, and I didn't have that. Growing up, that wasn't a conversation I had with my family. That wasn't something that, they pushed for. But I think progressing in my career, I really had to, growing up, my family, they were part of this nonprofit organization, faith-based, and they built this rehabilitation home for men and women that, had substance abuse issues. And I think that's where I really learned how to love people, really learned how to face adversity. I got to love these people back to life. One of the things my parents did for me was provide a legacy of serving the community. And I never really shared that part of me. And not that I was embarrassed or I just didn't feel relatable, right? My parents are giving back to the community. They sacrificed so much to serve and help people. And the rehab was free. So you get all these different people from all walks of life that no one else can help. And my parents helped. And so that's the legacy that I'm proud to be a part of. And I think it really made me the leader I am today.
You mentioned that education was a challenge, and this question, Joel, how big is that of a challenge for the Latino community? And what is your greatest challenge to overcome?
So for Latinos, as it was mentioned before, we're 60 million and growing. And Latinos as a population have the largest college attainment gap of any population out there. Now, that's a major issue not only for the Latino community, but for the economy more broadly. Because Latinos are going to represent about 50% of the workforce replacement in every industry and sector. And yet, we are the least likely to graduate from college today. We start college at that freshman year level, and we don't finish. Oftentimes, it is financial. Sometimes it is because of familial obligations that we have back at home. Sometimes it just is a combination of many things. If we want to look forward towards the workforce of tomorrow, we're going to have to address the opportunity to achieve education, attain your education, but look at different pathways to education. There can't be a one-size-fits-all on our education journey for all Latinos. A 4-year degree, quite frankly, is not going to be in sight for everyone, and the jobs of tomorrow are going to require technical training that may be outside of those parameters. So to address the college attainment issue, it has to be a yes and. How do we get more of our students into college, and how do we look at pipeline development that goes beyond and outside of college as well if we're going to close that college attainment gap? We will not be able to fill the workforce of tomorrow if we don't start working on this today. We're already, quite frankly, behind the ball on that one. I think my challenge is similar to probably a lot of those in the room, in that I agree with my panelists that have talked about setting a goal and achieving it and having a vision, but the reality behind the scenes is a little bit different. My challenge, like many of those in the room, is just the stories I tell in myself that are running through in my head that kind of create this false narrative that I'm not good enough, that I'm not ready, and that I won't belong. Those aren't messages that are just given to me by the outside world. They're messages that I perpetuate and keep alive and well in my head. It doesn't matter how many degrees we get, how many times someone taps us on our shoulders, how many times someone tells us we are more than capable of doing the job. Too often we count ourselves out. My biggest challenge is, just despite all of my success, I still don't fully understand my value and my worth. And when I don't understand my value and my worth, I give discounts to everyone, often doing things for free when I shouldn't be, counting myself half out. So I am a work in progress, trying to own my value and own my worth and stop giving discounts for what I offer.
I agree with you. I mean, I always worked harder than everybody else, right? I went and got myself educated, and I went and got my master's just to kind of differentiate myself from what the competition is there, because I would see myself as a Latina woman. So this question, it goes to Alfredo. Did you have to do something different to differentiate yourself as a Latino from your competition in order to get where you are today?
These are not easy questions, by the way.
Definitely not.
And what Joelle says is it's very true. There's something, as you were saying, that which has helped me. And listen, we all come from different walks of life, so we can be foreign-born, first generation from Mexico, Cuba, married to a Colombian, born in New York and raised in Puerto Rico. That's me, for example. But what came to mind when you were saying that, and this is a bigger mantra, is, and in Spanish is, te la tienes que creer. You have to believe in yourself. It starts, I think, with you. Si no te la crees, if you don't believe that you can do it, then you're putting a barrier. And listen, I don't say this because I too am a work in progress. I think we all are. Yeah, I would just say that. I mean, when you get into the tactical levels, for example, something that happens to me to this day, because I've written in Spanish and then as well in English. And I always have to check twice to see that my nouns and my verbs are right, because you can invert them. Some of you are nodding. So little things like that. But I think it starts with having to believe in yourself and knowing that while we all come from different walks of life, and the world is your oyster, to use a very, and you have to go get it and believe in yourself, and just learn along the way.
I'm glad you're telling the audience here that they have to believe in yourself. And Nancy, did anybody, or did you wish that anybody in your early career told you something in your, what to do, or did you have that from somebody?
So I had really good role models growing up. My mom was an executive from a multinational company, so I had that role model that I wanted to aspire to be, because that's what I saw at home. But at the same time, I wish that I would have known earlier in my career that the path to where you want to go is not necessarily a linear line, right? It doesn't look like a straight line. And that, in a great analogy that my husband shared with me last night, it's like when you are rock climbing, right? Like, you want to get to the top of the mountain, and sometimes it's not going straight. Sometimes you have to go sideways, sometimes you have to go down to achieve that next level. And I wish that I would have known earlier that it's okay sometimes to take a step down and get that skill set that you need to move to the next level, or even get that group of people that will support you and be your cheerleaders and become your motivators to achieve that next role. It's a very humbling experience, but at the same time, if you look at those opportunities as great learnings, then the sky is the limit, right? And going back to the earlier points, it all starts with you and your confidence on what you can achieve. And I think that's the most important thing. You cannot achieve what you don't believe you can do. So it all starts with the mindset.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just add something about confidence, though, that I think is really important in this room? So a lot of work that we do in research and studies out there links identity with confidence. And one of the stats that keeps me up at night, and anyone that will listen to me talk, is that 78% of Latinos in the workforce today believe that they have to repress, hide, or completely diminish part of their identity, their culture, their language, how they talk, how they dress. I remember early in my career being told, don't go with the red lipstick if you want to be taken seriously. How about the pearls instead of the big hoop earrings? You know, maybe don't wear a skirt. Whatever the case may be, those early messages were, of course, you're not good enough the way you are. In order for Latinos to have the confidence in their talents, in order to really put themselves on those path of possibilities, we have to make sure that our identity is no longer seen as a deficit. We call it the cultural capital. And we bring a lot of cultural capital to the table, and we have to begin to break the cycle of hiding and diminishing and changing who we are in order to fit in if we want to really gain that confidence that's going to get us to that next level.
Yeah, I think being in a Latino family, right, it's put your head to the ground and don't look up, and somebody will recognize you. I wish that somebody had told me that I could be myself out there and present myself, and I would be accepted. So, Stephanie, did you have to go through a journey where you had to find out this by yourself, or do you wish that somebody had told you something early in your career of how to help you face what's out there?
I had to learn on my own. I think COVID changed a lot for us, and it really humbled me the last couple of years. I didn't have balance, and I was trying to be everything to everyone for so long, and you can only do that for so long until you break. And I think I wish I would have told myself, have fun, enjoy the moment, enjoy the wins. I always was ready for the next challenge. And I think I sacrificed personal relationships, enjoying what I like to do on the personal time, because I was always thinking about my next move, how I can save us one more time, one more driver, one more hire. And in the process, I lost myself during the pandemic of trying to figure out what my next move is. And I think in different seasons, you just got to wait it out. But have fun, enjoy the moment.
I think having a group of people to know you, like having that group of people where you can bounce ideas. I mean, my husband has nothing to do with business. He's a cook, right? And I still bounce ideas, and he gives me the best advice sometimes because it's outside of my norm. And so, Alfredo, this goes for you. Have you had to rely on somebody? Do you have a group of people? Who do you rely on to bounce your ideas or to just your future goals? Or do you just do it all on your own and have to figure it all out?
Yes to all of those. No, listen, we all have people along our careers that help us, mentors or family. Back to the cultural identity piece, I think if you embrace it, it can be a superpower. There's this saying, it's not mine, but to know where you're going, you have to know where you come from. And so that is something that, as we celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month, which for a lot of Latinos really doesn't mean much, right? It doesn't. We don't wake up, it's like, hey, I laugh because it's true, right? But nonetheless, I think it is an interesting time to reflect again where we came from, because it's important, and we're not this is I mean, the U.S. is a melting pot, and nobody came from here. This is just a different time and a different generation, and to embrace that, I think, is important. And then along the way, you meet a lot of special people, and you learn by your mistakes. I, for one, every day go back. I'm my biggest critic, right? I think things through maybe too much. That combined with, it's important, I think, to have a team that you can trust, where you can debate and talk about things, whether they be about business or life in general. Again, very broad, but certainly having a good base, whether it be your family or friends or mentors that help you along the way is critical. Yeah.
That support system is always good. And Stephanie, again, do you have a support system, and who in your life is that support system?
I've learned to rely on my support system. Being a manager, I don't know it all. I don't want to know it all. And I think it's important to admit that you need strong women and men that already paved the way, that you can really rely on their wisdom, learn. My support system is incredible. I mean, my mom, I've got some really good mentors. Breakthrough has done a phenomenal job of matching me with a mentor. And then I am surrounded by so many talented individuals that I learn from, I grow from. I want to hang around the smartest person in the room because I'm going to learn. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I have a mentor too, and I think that is the best place to get your career advice, because they are mind-minded people that know that. So again, Nancy, where do you get your career advice from?
So I also have what we call like a personal board of directors. So it's these people that not only mentor you and can coach you, but also rally for you and support you. And when you get that imposter syndrome, you know, talking in the back of your head, telling you that you're not good enough, worthy enough, or that you don't have the skill set, then it's these people that can see that value and bring it back to you. But I think probably the most important for me personally is having people that will be able to be honest with you, because you don't want to bounce an idea to somebody that will totally agree with you. I think your example with the husband that is a cook and bring a different perspective to whatever situation you might be facing is super important, because if you're bouncing ideas with people that is 100% like you are, like thinking the same wavelength, then you're probably leaving something on the table. So finding people that will have a different background, a different life experience, and that will be honest with you is key and fundamental to be able to take that advice that you need in difficult situations. Because sometimes you need to be told where you're not doing well so you can recognize it, work on it, and continue to move on.
So Joel, is the Latino Leadership Institute, do they have anything like that where, you know, you could get your advice from, or a support group or anything like that?
Yes, yes, and yes. So a little backtracking of why we started the Latino Leadership 8+ years ago, and for a lot of what's being discussed up here today. We have a huge opportunity to close the social and economic gap for Latinos and put ourselves on a path of possibility. But in order to do so, we have to recognize that there's two main challenges before us. The first are the systemic barriers, and those things are real. And we only have so much control and only so much time to begin to break those down. And we have to do that. And we have to prepare ourselves. Interestingly enough, when the founders of the LLI tapped me to start and build this organization, I didn't want to take this job for all those self-doubt reasons that I mentioned before. But one of the things that always stuck with me is my grandfather, who I spoke to about this opportunity right after I met with the founders for the first time, told me something very insightful. And he was an interesting fellow, as he was a teenage dad who went out to go get a job, and no one would even interview him because his name was Lorenzo Martinez. And all he wanted to do was work in the paper business. So he knew he was qualified. So one day, this was before cell phones and you couldn't Google or LinkedIn someone, he changed his name to Larry Martin and tried to interview for the job. And surprise, surprise, Larry Martin got the job. He would not take that job. Instead, he walked out of that interview that day and he decided to go register for the local union hall. And he spent his entire career working as a union rep to make sure that the laws and the policies in place were going to take into consideration the discriminatory act that he encountered that day. He would retire as the international vice president for his union, having negotiated in many countries across the world. But on this day, when I told him I was not going to take this opportunity at the Latino Leadership Institute because I didn't think I was good enough, he looked at me and he said, "That's exactly why you need to do it. Because to solve this problem, we have to believe we belong at the table before we go demanding a seat. Because we're going to demand a seat and then we're not going to be willing to take it. Or we're going to get there and we're not going to be willing to raise our voice. We're not going to be willing to demand 3 additional seats because one voice is not enough when we're 20% of the population." So the work of the LLI has built an entire leadership program based on that self-work. How can we learn about our identity, the barriers to success, and at the same time understand we're not just training Latinos to lead, we're training leaders for the 21st century. So we're going to teach leaders how to be more productive, more collaborative. The best of the best, Jackie, Guillermo, I saw you in the back room. Talk to them, they've been through the program. But technical support is only part of the equation. The most important part is the social capital. Oftentimes we get left out of positions, not because we don't have the right education or the right talent, but because no one knew where to find us or we didn't even know the position was even open in the first place. Building our social capital, having peers that understand our unique journey, that'll be your biggest supporters and ambassadors, and finding allies and partners outside of our community who are going to open up their networks to us is the key to our success to breaking down some of those systemic barriers. They're not going to break down themselves, but with social capital, I think we can break them all down.
I think one of the things with my story is the position that I'm at today. I almost didn't apply because I didn't think I was good enough for that position. I thought that I was not going to get a director position. Why would I, right? I'm a Latino. There's more qualified people out there. And it took a friend to tell me, what are you doing? You're making your own barrier. So I think that's one of the things that I have created since then, right? Getting promoted within the organization to VP. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I have to have a vision for myself. And that's my next question is, do you have a career vision for you? And do you know what's next? And this goes to Alfredo.
That opens up a whole, listen, for myself, I think, it depends on what stage of your career and what motivates you and what gets you out of bed. All of those things are very personal. I'm still figuring a lot of things out. But what I do I think about a lot is what gets me out of bed? What am I passionate about? Because then it doesn't become a job. Then it's a journey towards something that you want to get. And that can be business related. It could be personal. So I would say that. I mean, everybody has to look inside themselves and figure that out for themselves. It's something that, for me, it's a personal journey. And I am branching out beyond what I do into things more in the nonprofit world and to being an advisor to different folks, some of them in the Latino space that are looking for that experience that I just have with having gotten it wrong and right in some occasions, and then trying to push that forward in my particular case is fulfilling. So, yeah.
You mentioned challenging yourself. I think that's a key. And Stephanie, what is next for you? What is the career? Where do you see your path going? Either with your company or just on your personal life?
I think right now I'm enjoying and learning to be a manager of 7 and still be a full-time recruiter. So I think I'm just enjoying this season in my life. But I think my next step is to have more of a voice and feel comfortable in my own skin. And it's so refreshing to be on the panel with you women and gentlemen, just to hear the same struggles, you face, I'm facing in a different industry. So I want to be more of a voice, and I want to be more vulnerable and be okay with that. I think it's going to make me a better leader.
Great. So when you look at your future and you look at your past, is there anything that anybody would have liked to have done different? And Nancy, this goes to you. Is there anything in your path where you say, darn, I wish I would have done or known or done something different?
Oh gosh, I am so hard on myself that I think I do that 1,000 times a day. Oh, I wish I would have done this differently, right? As a mom, as a business professional, as a business owner, as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, like in every single role and hat that I wear in my life, I do that because I'm really hard. But deep inside, I am so thankful for all the mistakes that I have made because they have brought me to where I am. And you are not who you are without those opportunities. So at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. We all have great wings too. It's how we look at those mistakes and take the learning out of it. But at the same time, how can you also take those wings and learn from them as well to continue to excel? I think, in a nutshell, I am extremely pleased with every single opportunity that I have given, and at the same time with every single challenge that I have faced, because that has made me the woman that I am today.
Yeah, I remember seeing a quote stating that there is no mistakes, there's just a time to stop, reflect, take 2 minutes to reinvent yourself. So I try to see nothing like a mistake before. So how about you, Joelle? Did you want to do anything different with your pet?
Take over the world? Unapologetically, it's time for Latinos to step into this space. So whatever I can do to help it. But in all seriousness, we just launched our leadership program national and significantly reduce cost and barriers, because my big, bold vision is that less than 1/2 Latino professionals have access to professional development. I want to be a conduit to that. I want to open as many people into our social network as possible. And with my partners here in the room, we are also helping to generate wealth in our community. One of the biggest challenges for us is that you can't have influence and power if we're also not generating wealth in the community. And the largest gap of any community out there in wealth creation right now is within the Latino community. And you build wealth in 3 ways: home ownership, entrepreneurship, or inheritance. I can't touch the third without the first 2. And the gaps between home ownership and entrepreneurship are significant. So this year, the LLI launched LEAP, which is the Latino Entrepreneur Access Program, where we are taking Latino and BIPOC-owned businesses, putting them through a 12-month technical social capital program. And because social capital is so critical, we actually pay our advisors to serve as a board of advisors for our entrepreneurs for 1 year. They are mandated to have 4 business meetings with our entrepreneurs, and our advisors come from 5 countries across the globe. We also partnered with the new Community Transformation Fund this year in order to launch a BIPOC venture fund, which will grow to be about a $50 million fund, because part of growing our business is it will require us investing in those businesses. So we are going to close that opportunity gap by investing and building up our entrepreneurs. So that program launched in Colorado this year, and it's going to launch national next year. So big.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the organizations and the help that Latinos can get out there. So this question goes to all panelists, and it's the last prepared question that I have, so get ready for your questions that you have as an audience members. But how has participation in organizations like Prospanica or Career Growth has helped you with your career development? Do you want to start?
No,
For a change?
Well, I actually have a very good story with Prospanica. So I am a lifetime member of Prospanica. I served in the board for 10 years, and then that granted me at that time a lifetime membership. I'm also a SHEP membership as a professional engineer as well. And the reason why I affiliate myself with these organizations is, to Nubia's earlier point, is because you find like-minded individuals that will provide you networking opportunities, professional development opportunities, this board of people that you can bounce ideas with. But my story is 12, 15 years ago, when I was serving on the board in Atlanta, I met a gentleman who was in the C-suite as a Latino. And we hit it off. We had a really good relationship. And for at least 3 years, we were in touch, not very often because he was really busy. But we exchanged emails, we had phone calls and catch up, and we built a relationship through that connection. When our family relocated to Denver, I knew he had some connections in some industries, and I reached out and said, hey, we're moving to Denver. Is there any opportunity that you can connect me with somebody local? I don't know anybody, and I need to get my foot on the door. And he connected me with Molson Coors at the time, and I was able to get an interview. And granted, he didn't give me the job, but he gave me the opportunity to get my foot on the door, and that's so valuable because I took care of the rest. So the biggest message probably that I want to share with this is it's not about meeting people, going to these networking events and just randomly or casually meeting people. Is building those connections that serve each other, right? Like, it's not selfishly trying to cultivate relationships that will probably lead into something. Is genuinely cultivating relationships that can serve you as a human, but also probably also lend you a better opportunity later in your career. So I am 100% proponent of affiliating with these organizations because of the value they bring to your life, personally and professionally. Anybody else?
Anybody else? This is for the whole panels. Yeah.
I'm going to join after today. I feel inspired. I have to give a shout out to Kate Covial and Adria Campos for putting me on. But I want to thank Adriana for being a voice at Breakthrough, and sharing her story has helped me open up more. And so I want to thank her for that.
Yeah, I don't know what else I can add except that you have to find the time to reach out. We to get to where we get to, sometimes we forget some things. In my case, I'm looking to reach out this is why I'm here, and I appreciate the invite. I will also sign up more for Prospanica as well. But and the Latino Leadership Institute, for that matter. We sometimes don't, personally, I want to see how I can give back to the community. It's important, tenemos que ayudar. We have to prop ourselves up, and sometimes just, again, experience can count for something. So as people are starting their careers or they're stuck, for those that have been stuck before, sharing that ear or that experience, I think goes a long way. So I think that's something that Prospanica can do, as well as many other institutions. And I think it's on us to give back to the community and have the next generation be as successful as they can be.
Some our jobs, right, with the Hispanic resource groups that they have. They are the ones that got me in touch with Prospanica. I call Jackie, since I know her since college, and I say, hey, Jackie, my Hispanic resource group wants to get with the Prospanica, just come on over and sell it to them. And it was a great thing to do, because you expand your resources, not just inside your work environment, but outside. So I guess, Joel, I'll leave it to you. Talk about how great Prospanica and the Latino Resource Leadership Institute can be.
So a couple things. We do work with ERGs and BRGs as well. So if you represent one in the room, I'd love to talk to you about how we can bring LLI programming as well, in addition to Prospanica. But at the LLI, if you go through our programs, and it doesn't matter which program you go through, you're all part of what we call the familia, and we play on the LLI and familia. And I say that because there's a couple important things. You need to be surrounded by people you trust, people who have your back, People who understand your unique journey along the way, and people who are going to champion you regardless of any of those barriers, people that are going to open doors for you. So it is like a family because we want to see one another succeed. And I don't take that for granted amongst the Latino community. One of the things that we will have to continue to work on and be committed to, whether it's through Prospanica or the Latino Leadership Institute, is that being Latino is a beautiful, eclectic labyrinth of difference. We come from many different countries, we speak different languages, some of us are dark, some of us are light, some of us are in between. And for far too long amongst the Latino community, there's been judgment. Are you Latino enough? What does it mean to be Latino? The LLI and the Familia is a space where all of anyone belongs and identifies and comes into this space. And I do not take that for granted one bit, because for far too long in our community, it's been that crabs in the pot analogy, where one would try to get their way out of the boiling pot and the others would try to pull them down to try to save themselves. And I think that that's what Prospanica and LLI, that's what they get rid of. When we come to these types of organizations, we come, one, because it's mission-oriented and purpose-driven, but because we come to eliminate the crabs in the pot. Instead, we want all of us to get out of the pot and to thrive. And so I think that's the commitment that we make to those that participate with us, and what we require those who are participating to commit to one another.
Well, thank you. That concludes the questions that I had for the panel, but we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A. If not, yeah, you can take that one.
Okay, anybody have any questions in the audience? Don't be shy.
Opportunity, right? You were given opportunity, and we had a sponsor, HR event for CoBank. CoBank sponsors Prospanica, and one of the things we talked about is we get people, to the door, but it's kind of hard to get them past HR. So my question is, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there was coaching I could have provided to try and get more people from the Hispanic community to get through the corporate, door. So.
Oh, not that one. Not that one. Sorry.
You're just going to have to pass it along. In the land of COVID, we're just going to pass this along. So we work a lot with that, because employers would come to us and they would say, we want to hire Latino talent for X, Y, and Z, but we just can't find anyone. And that's what the employers and the HR and the recruiters would tell us. And I'd say, okay, but I'm going to introduce you to some. So we'd introduce them to some, and then we would go back and find out they still didn't get hired. The issue was not simply not having access to this talented pool, but on the other end of the hiring practices, there's things on both ends of the spectrum that prevent us from being hired. One, bias is real, and that is something that hiring managers, talent recruiters, if there isn't a mandated, and not just you took one day of a training and now you no longer have bias type of training, but that it is a constant coaching, a constant work in progress to work on some of those biases. We won't eliminate that in the hiring process. Google did a blind hiring effort as part of their unconscious bias work, and they eliminated anything, total blind study, but the moment that they heard accents, it changed things for them in the hiring practice. So it doesn't matter what we eliminate, there's this bias that has to be worked with. On our end, there's some cultural components that we also have to take in consideration. For example, Latinos are less likely to move for a job. We were less likely to move away from family for career promotion. We ask less for pay, so we don't know how to negotiate when we do get in through the interview process, which signals to them we could be a weaker applicant. So we don't actually bring our full value to some of these interviews either, when we're one of the finalists. And we often don't ask for coaching or prep support as we're going through that interview process, or it's not offered to us, which are critical for some of these corporate jobs. And so it has to be a combination of the employer doing their work to remove barriers, systemic bias, and for us also doing our work, understanding our value, how we're going to negotiate for this job, and what concessions and decisions we're willing to make for ourselves that may be contrary to the norm. Both things have to happen.
And did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think that's well said. I think that reaching out to people, but not being shy, right? So if you know somebody who's in that position, ask them. Nobody was born knowing anything. So if you're going to an interview and you know somebody, English, Spanish, doesn't matter where they're from, what may help you, it'll only improve your chances. So reach out to those that you trust to see how you can get in. And if you fail the first, second time, the third time you'll be all the better. You learn how to interview. So take shots, take swings, and then surround yourself with people that can coach you through it. Is that what I would say?
I wanted to ask you, Joelle, one question. Are you connected to the Rocky Mountain Leadership Institute?
Yes, so we've done some work with them in the past. No formal connection, but we actually have a leadership collaborative in Colorado. Leadership is a big deal, it's a big business, and so we work with the Betcher Foundation and others who have brought practitioners and leaders from across the state to learn best practices. And the other thing is leadership is a journey. So even after you go through the LLI, we have put folks to international programs in Mexico and in Europe. We put folks through Stanford programs and Harvard programs, and then things like Leadership Denver and others. We want you in as many leadership programs as we see fit. So we think collaboration is a great opportunity.
Do we have any other questions?
I have a comment. Thank you very much for this presentation. I have been in this country for about 10 years. I moved here in an engineering role, in a leadership position. And I think the gap is a reality. I have interviewed like around 100 people for entry-level engineering. And I think I only have had like 3 Latinos. None of them a woman, and that's very sad, right? I was thinking about that. How can we close that gap? And thank you so much for the comments today. If you want to add something.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of organizations that are trying to support not only Hispanics in STEM, but also women in STEM. Obviously, as a Hispanic engineer, I fully support those organizations because even in my country, and to me it was interesting because when I was reading Latinos and being Hispanic in the US, when I moved to the US, I didn't know what that meant because in my country, everybody is Hispanic, right? So the minority or the challenge is not necessarily related with ethnicity, is more related with the gender. So going through engineering school, which is male-dominated, working in a petrochemical company where it's male-dominated, and being 22 appointed as the chief of a department where my direct report was working for the organization longer than I was alive. So I was 22, he was working for that company for 25 years. So the constant concept of you have to prove yourself to be able to show everybody that you are the right person for that role is real. I think us, as these women in STEM have an opportunity that is beautiful to go and support those organizations, to tell people, to tell young girls, this is what it looks like. It's not whatever you see in the movies, this nerd, no social skill person in STEM. You can be a full-rounded professional, and it is actually a great life because numbers are numbers in any language, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And continue to tell them what that role looks like, becoming those role models for them so they can see what it looks, because I totally agree with you. It's really sad, the reality that there's not a lot of Hispanics in STEM, let alone women. And we need to his point, give back to the community and kind of like become that role model that they can see and aspire to be.
Any other questions? Just so you know, I'm also a Hispanic engineer, she's chemical, I did mechanical. I was the only girl in my engineering class. regardless of race, color, whatever. And it is hard. I think the hardest point or part, when you're studying in school, you just don't know who to talk to. Like, who do I go and interview? It's kind of scary. And I think one of the things I leverage, and you mentioned it too, is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So if you're looking for Hispanic professional engineers, I would go to those recruiting events. I would go to that because then you're signaling to the students that hey, I'm looking for people that look like you, that have that skill set. So that would be my feedback, regardless of which field you're in. Any other questions? I'm going to try and give somebody else an opportunity. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Joanna Rosa Sainz. I wanted to thank you for speaking and really just saying that building those partnerships in our community is huge. I've been a community organizer for 20 years, and I feel like it definitely helped me. So thank you for reiterating that today.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll bring it back over here.
I wanted to ask about the gap. Does the gap that you see in Latinos with being able to ask for more money and negotiation, does it have anything to do with the literacy problem that we have in our society gap, where only 22% of Latinos actually read proficiently in 4th grade, and they're not being served? And so they graduate reading below average. Does it have anything to do with being able to succeed and move on, in your opinion? And anyway,
Education attainment is a real issue for us, and we just keep kicking that can down the road. Let's be honest. We underinvest in education. Our schools are still the most segregated institutions in the country, and so we perpetuate this cycle of really denying many in our community access to quality education. And if you are denied quality education early on, that's going to have a prolonged effect throughout your career. There's absolutely no doubt that that's going to be an impact. So we have to be able to address that issue. And there's another part of the problem, though, because we educate folks, and those with even, multiple advanced degrees will still not be prepared to negotiate for higher salary or understand. So it's beyond an educational problem. This is, a society. There's stereotype threat. If you are told you're less worthy than over and over again, and you don't see yourself in these positions as being high-paid, high-powered positions, then you really have to fake it to make it, and that's a problem. Because if you're faking it to making it, then again, you're discounting that value. So yes, we have to deal with the education pipeline problem, and there's still an inherent issue where we can go get multiple degrees and still not be prepared for negotiation. I just did a training with a group of high-level senior executives in tech, Latino, and it was really interesting because we had gone through this program and someone brought up, I can't ask for a higher salary because it goes against my cultural beliefs. I said, okay, I'm interested, tell me a little bit more. And they said, well, they grew up in another country. They immigrated to the United States, and humility is one of the most important cultural norms of where they grew up. You give deference to power and authority, and you stay humble. And so this notion of asking for more salary, even if they earn it, and even if their colleagues make equal, if not more than, in her mind, she was really having a hard time of how to ask for that salary and still honor her traditions and her culture, which is very strongly rooted in this idea of humility. So some of that work and identity work and conversation work has to also involve that in addition to the educational pipeline issue.
You brought out, I guess, 2 questions from me. One is, what are companies like Dish, Ball, thank you, Ball, Breakthrough doing to make sure that you, I guess, make that gap smaller? And then second, did you as panelists have anything that went against your cultural grind? And what do you do when you find yourself in a situation like that in the, I guess, corporate world?
Can you read the question again? I'll go, okay. Sorry for the microphone guy. So there twofold, right? One is, what are the companies that you work for, like Breakthrough, Dish, or Ball, or the Latino Living, in order to shrink the gap that you know of? And the second is there anything that went against the grain when you were in some of the companies, not the one you're in, but other companies that went against the grain, and does that make your perspective or how you change the view on those companies? I think for me, Breakthrough, I'm gonna speak on Breakthrough. I think Breakthrough is doing a really good job of making sure we have a compensation committee, making sure that we're aligned with market talent. And then I think as the Central West manager, really bringing those issues to our leaders where I feel like somebody's not compensated correctly, or somebody didn't ask. I think I take it a little bit personal when there's a Latino that is undervaluing their compensation. I always ask, do you feel comfortable? That's the number one question I ask. Do you feel comfortable? Because this is about you. And I turn it back on them. And but that's one of the best practices as far as compensation and aligning is, it's so important. I've been doing this for 18 years, and so many people are afraid to ask for what they want. I even struggled a little bit in the beginning, but when you ask, you actually get it. And so it's so important that even when you feel you lack the confidence, you ask for what you deserve, because so many people do it, and I think we always want to feel humble and grateful for opportunities, but we deserve to be compensated correctly.
So I will go to probably like a summary of the companies that I have worked with in the US, and I have been very intentional about choosing companies that align with my values, and diversity, inclusivity, and equity is something that is really important and close to me in my heart because it represents who I am. So I choose to work for organizations that align with those values, and actually Ball Corporation was chosen recently as one of the companies that value diversity, equity, and inclusion, and were recognized recently in that space. In regards to, the earlier point of the fact that we don't want to ask for more because humility is a big thing. I think it's like go back to our upbringing. Like growing up, you're told, be humble, don't brag about yourself. And I think the biggest learning that I had as I moved to the US was interviewing. And we talked earlier about interviewing. Maybe at the third you will get it, because it is a skill and you need to practice. Even if you're not actively looking, you need to continue to practice the skill to be good at it. But personally, having these situational questions where you have to tell everybody why you're a rock star and why you change like the way of doing business and how you deliver all those results was actually something that I had to study for, because I'm like, why does it have to be about me? It's not really about me. It's about the group. It's about how we build together. But these questions are designed to show how you think and how you're good in that position. And you have to switch your mindset and be comfortable with that. But you have to train for it so it comes naturally, because otherwise it's faking, and they can see through that, especially if they're really good recruiters, they will be able to see through that. And so I think to summarize the whole thing is about aligning with organizations that are aligned with your values, but at the same time, speak up if you see something that is not right, and be that voice of diversity, equality, and inclusion at the table for those that are next to you or behind you.
In my case in particular, I am the executive sponsor of a recently formed employee resource group called Adelante, whose actual leader was, I think, the president of Prospanica a couple of years ago. And one of the things that we've done is, and it's one of the most active employee resource groups in the company, we over-index in Hispanics relative to the population, but a lot of that has to do with our call centers. And so one of the things that we try and do, and I have somebody on my team who was a high flyer at the call center And we gave him an opportunity to join the corporate staff. And like that example, there's many others. So this idea of sharing the opportunities that are within the company and pushing people to apply and that they can do it has been really special to see, because it's almost every week now that we see in the chat that we're celebrating somebody's ascension within the company, and a lot of it is brought upon sort of the encouragement I think that we try to give within the group. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. I'll come.
I have a question, and it veers a little more into like the personal side of your guys' life. So, as like women, I don't know if Stephanie, are you a mom? No. Okay. Well, you have a family though, so it's like, how do you guys kind of balance your multiple roles that you play, especially as women, and how do you kind of make peace with like maybe having a lot of expectations relevant to like the cultural context? You know what I mean? Like sometimes as Hispanic moms, we have to go like above and beyond being a mom, and then like being a provider as well. It's like, how do you kind of balance that in your life?
Or father, either one.
Don't turn the mic. This is so real that my abuelita used to light a candle for me after I had, so I'm not just a mom, I'm a mom of twins. And they're about to be 13, so I'm heading into really dangerous territory. And I remember, true story, she was so worried. Mija, you gotta be home. Mija, you gotta learn how to cook. Mija. And I don't know how to cook, couldn't cook to save my life or theirs. And the best answer I have for you is I found a great partner. My husband and I met in college. He knew my ambitions early on in life. I was never just gonna be a career woman and just a mom. I'm all of it all the time. I never turn off hats. I never say I'm sorry if I have to take a call from my kids, and I never say I'm sorry if I have to miss a day of work to be there for my kids. I never say I'm sorry because I never miss a single soccer game, even if I have to fly home on the red eye to be there. I never say I'm sorry because I am all of that. And I told my grandma that one day. I said, Grandma, I am not sorry that I am a mom and a career woman. I was just really smart to marry a wonderful man who cooks, who cleans, who does the laundry, who makes sure that I have access to my team snap. Ruth Bader Ginsburg always said that we would get, equality on the bench when we had equality at home. And I think that's the truth. You don't do it alone. So if you don't have even a good partner, but my parents have been involved, my grandparents have been involved, my friends and family are partners in this work. I don't get where I am without a whole crew of people behind me. But the one thing I will not have, regret is a wasted emotion. Guilt is a wasted emotion. I am not sorry. I just have to work maybe a little hard and have a really good team around me to get it all done.
Perspective, right? You get a lot of judgment from the Latino community. Oh, you're not a good mom. You're missing your kid's game. Oh, your husband is babysitting. I'm sorry, he had those kids with me. They don't babysit. So that, you just have to let that slide. Yeah. I have a wonderful husband. Like you said, you get that partnership, right? That my husband is a cook, of course, for trade, so that's great for me. I looked for him. Right? But also you have to go through your life saying, you know what is outside my four walls does not matter what people judge. And being in a Latino culture, if you miss the kids, like your nephew's birthday because you were at school trying to educate yourself, oh, she's a terrible mom. Look at the husband with all the 3 kids, and your husband's picking up kids from school. All that judgment needs to go out the door, and you just have to get a partner that really follows you and has engagement in that, in your success, because the success is both of yours, not just yours, right? And you have to share that. And the kids, how many essays my kids read, and they're like, Mama, I don't understand half the things you said, but does it sound good? And they're like, yes, Mommy, sounds good. Okay, then thank you for your help, right? That is inside your walls. You don't ever take that judgment that from outside. And that's the only thing that I can offer you, is that if you want to succeed, it takes a partner, right? It takes that village behind you, but do not take any listen to those criticisms that the Latino community might put against you because you're a Latino woman trying to succeed.
I have to echo all of that. I have a fantastic husband who is sitting in front row, who is picking up the kids in 10 minutes so I can be here with you tonight or this afternoon. But I also think that you have to forgive yourself. You don't have to be perfect. And that's something that we tell ourselves, and we're sabotaging ourselves. And I do that every night. I'm doing my best, and my kids can see that. And I think that's the most important thing. We wear too many hats, right? Like, I cook, and I actually love cooking. I love baking, and I am a yoga instructor. At the same time, I am the business owner, but at the same time, I work for a corporation, and it's just a lot going on at the same time. And it just have to be super organized. I live by my calendar. If it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. And I am very intentional at setting time with my kids because I'm working too much, and they have told me, like, you're all the time working. And I'm like, yes, you're right. You know what? This can wait. Like, you can go to bed and then, yeah, I'm sleeping less, but I'm giving every single space in my life the best that I have. And I will probably tap a little bit into finding something that fulfills your mind and soul. Is it prayer? Is it meditation? Is it physical activity? Whatever that might be, that can help you stay grounded and also at the same time connect with yourself, because it is so important. You cannot give what you don't have. So you have to be full in your own capacity to be able to provide to all of them. And I feel that when I am the more irritable or the less patience is when that cup is getting empty. So I go back to, okay, what do I need to be happy? Do I need to go back to my practice? Do I need to go back to teach? Do I need to meditate a little bit more? Is it prayer? Whatever is lacking, so I can fill the cup and then go back to be the best that I can. It doesn't mean perfect. It means the best that I have to give.
Yep, okay. Okay, so we have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Veronica Rodriguez, and I have a question. Now that we have in the conversation of removing the gap, there is something that even me personally say when I'm talking with other Hispanics, that is to prove ourselves. But we say it too lightly. What is to prove ourselves? What is or what our employees are not expecting of us for being Hispanic? I have a really good insight about being, like, not wanting to move. That's something that is actually something I never considered. But what is else to prove? Or even excel, because I think that usually they are not expecting us to do the bare minimum. We need to excel. So you guys as professionals, what can you tell us how to prove ourselves in like a healthy way?
Does anybody want to go?
I think it's always showing up, being consistent, right? And that's so important that you are consistent. I look back and I felt like I had to prove myself over and over and over again, but I never became a victim of it. And I think that's important too, is that I never felt sorry for myself. I picked myself up again. I'm like, try me again. I came into an industry I knew nothing about. I hired pilots and didn't know there was 2 of them. I thought there was 1. There's a first officer and then there's a captain. I didn't know that, but I recruited for them and I hired like 400 pilots. Don't let anything stop you that you don't know. Learn, grow. I hung around pilots, learned the language, recruited them. And I think that's important. It's proving yourself, just being consistent and being teachable and being open and being honest that you don't know it all, and then hanging around really smart people.
I would start with the why. Why are you trying to prove yourself? you really need to sit in that space a little bit. I think you're right. We have to work hard. We have to be dedicated. We have to be consistent. We have to show up. We have to be curious. We have to be kind. We have to be all of those things to the point of wearing many hats. But what we have to stop doing is thinking that we have to be extra all the time too, to prove ourselves to whom and why are we proving ourselves? Is it for us? Because we're in a state of growth mindset and we want to improve and we are wanting to be curious and we want to do something for ourselves, then yes, put the effort into it. But if we are working so hard to prove our worth to others who sometimes just may not see it, then to the point here, find an organization, find a place, find an opportunity that's going to see the value that you're bringing. The one thing I don't want to perpetuate is this behavior of us, again, it fills a narrative that we're not good enough, and we can always be on the journey for improvement, there's no doubt, but we prove it to ourselves first. So just make sure that that's at the core, and then if it is, go on forward. But if that's not why you're doing this, I would do a little bit more self-reflection and really understand what's at the root of that effort.
Yeah, I think that's right. You have to know what it is that you're looking for. It's not about proving to others. It starts with you. So if you want to, go up the chain, so to speak, yeah, you have to be smarter, work harder, be more clever. And if you're not being recognized, and you can tell, you'll know if you are better, faster than the guy or the gal next to you. And if you're not being recognized, and I think it's being told, then it's your right to move on, right? But if you have to know that you've given it your best, and your best is your best. And if people aren't recognizing it, well, somebody else will. Yeah.
So just to wrap up the panel, I had one thing that I wanted you guys to kind of give as an opinion. So in general, for the most part, a lot of us don't invest in ourselves. So what advice would you give everybody here in the room of what they should be investing in themselves? 2 words. Or 2, yeah.
Whatever makes you happy. Find what is that you want to do, that it will make you happy. Go do it. I became a yoga instructor because I said, you know what? I think this is something that is going to give me an additional skill set. It will teach me how to be confident speaking in public, being comfortable with who I am. And again, I always go back to the freaking accent and how much I hated it for the longest time. And now, you know what? This is who I am. And if you don't like it, you can leave. So being confident with that, and then during the pandemic and the lockdown and all that, I told my husband I'm pulling my hair out. We are extremely social people, and being in lockdown was really hard on our family. And then I decided that I wanted to be a barista, and then I got a barista certification. And what am I gonna do with it? Nothing, but it makes me happy. So find whatever that makes you happy and go do it.
If you're an entrepreneur, look up LEAP. And if you're just a motivated, you know deep down that there's some unlocked potential there, definitely look into our Ignite program. And as always, I think organizations like Prospanica and others are a great resource. You got to put yourself on the path of possibility. It won't pave itself.
I think I would say invest in your passion. Find your passion. Early on, I was fortunate to find my passion, but invest in that. Figure it out. Find it.
Well, with that, we have Prospanica conference coming up, the Conference and Expo Center on November 2nd through the 4th in New Orleans. You can go and invest on yourself, on your professionalism. Thank you, everybody, so much for today. If we can get a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you to all the companies today that were represented in our panel, and to all of our sponsors for Prospanica Denver. I want to thank again everybody as an audience for being here. And you come here giving yourself an hour and a half to invest on yourself and learn from leaders that are out there that are Latino, that prove that you can do it. Sí se puede, and we can do this. Thank you.